good. We tried to do a different intro and it completely threw us.
Yeah,
Not to,
outside of our normal habit.
not to mention we've been recording and looked down and we were in fact not recording for a good 10 minutes.
A normal little breakdown for us.
Do you know what's funny is last week or 2 weeks ago, we recorded with Cam and Jack ended up showing up and we had the nicest time and the audio stunk. So we had to re-record it. And the whole time we were re-recording, I felt like redundant.
Yeah.
Because we had said it all. And so I was like, I feel like I've said it. And so when I was editing, there was a part in there where I said the same sentence like twice. Like not in a row, but in kind of sequence. And I was like, oh, I was really tripped up.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard to stay focused on some of that. It was definitely different. And it's a little different what we're doing now, recording on video and me trying to look at you on the phone. But I can see you looking at me and I'm not exactly
Hartley's
sure what to do.
texting.
So hello, Hartley.
Hello, Hartley.
So, babe, tell us about what's been going on with you.
So we just got back from Lubbock. We went and saw our son for Family Day at Texas Tech, went to the football game, and I thought we would just kind of run around and get him some clothes and get him some food and see kind of all of his favorite spots. And we ended up getting on the bed, Henley, then Jay, then me, because we only had a king bed, and we stayed there for like 3 days. And it was so nice. He doesn't have a bathroom in his room. It's in the hallway of their dorm. And so I think just to be on a big old king bed, even though he's squeezed by Jay, and to have a bathroom whenever he wanted, just steps away. And I had like a snack table and we played football. I mean, we had football on the TV all weekend.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it just was so good for my heart. And he is coming here this weekend. It's kind of following us home.
Yeah.
And so when we told him goodbye on Sunday, we really were just saying see you in a few days. So that was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, looking forward to him being back home. It'll be the first time in, I guess, about 7 weeks. But we went to Parents' Weekend there and totally not, knowing not what to expect.
Yeah.
And went to a tailgate party and got to meet some of his friends and went to a Texas Tech game. So it was a very unique experience for us, something not ever done a whole lot of, go to a college football game, much less go to a parent, as a parent weekend and be a parent at one. So it was really interesting. And then the weekend, 2 weekends before that, we went to Texas A&M Commerce and saw Lily there and got to see her in her element and see her all dressed up for Parents' Weekend and just, how much that she's changed as a person and how much out of her shell she's come out of, or really both of them. It's really amazing to see.
Yeah. They've been really inspiring to us to just, when you want to reinvent yourself, I guess college is a nice time to do it, but still we weren't ready to watch them do it. And they're both really, it's not that they're not acting like themselves. It's almost just like it's almost like they've grabbed another gear and channeled like the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Lily's thriving and so happy and social and trying things that she's never tried before. And the same with Henley. And the whole time we were there, he was studying these notes that he needs to take a test for his fraternity, kind of the history of the fraternity. And he was taking it so seriously and had Jay keep quizzing him on the questions. And, we'd be at lunch and he'd pull his little leather book out and study. And I don't know, just to watch him care that much about something that normally he would have just been like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It just was really cool to see the growth. It's really cool to see the growth in both of them.
Well, which he made 100 on that
Oh,
today.
good.
So,
he had a
did.
mental block about this one part, and we kept working with him on it. So I'm glad he finally got it.
Well, and y'all know we've talked on here a lot about kids and stepkids and our relationship and kind of how things have changed, and it's really hammered home the last 6 weeks of these kids going to school and what we've watched them go through and how much my relationship has changed with Lily, how much Jess's relationship has changed with Henley.
And Hartley for some reason.
Yeah, and how much my relationship was changed with Henley and just kind of the step you take as a parent. But it just really, drives home that and reinforces that, you just have to keep showing up for
Just
these
keep
kids,
showing
and irregardless of what's going on or what they're doing, just keep being there for them, whether they're a step kid or your kid, just kind of however it looks. And it really has, that point has been driven home to me very hard the last several weeks.
I know it's like I've been really trying to work on my health and wellness, and I set out to do like a 75 soft, but had like 4 or 5 different parameters you would follow. But the one that kind of, you throw 4 or 5 at the wall and see which one stuck, and the one that stuck or sticks, the diet part, which for me just looked like staying out of drive-throughs, because we're in drive-throughs
Yeah.
so much, and so I was like, I'm going to go easy on myself. I'm going to ease into it. Tiny habits are what they say. And so for the past 36 days, I have not eaten from a drive-through. I haven't had fast food for 36 days. And I haven't lost any weight. And there's nothing about me that's like, well, if I'm not going to lose weight, I'm just going to go back to eating the way that I want to. I feel better. I still have hope that there is a break on the horizon. And I look at our relationship with the kids as you keep showing up and you keep doing the right thing, and you refrain over and over and over from being small and emotional. And even though you don't see the fruit, even though you don't see any change in your relationship with them, it's not like you ever could be like, well, then I'm just going to show my butt and do whatever I want to do and be completely irrational and run down the street naked, because if they're not going to show up back for me, then I'm going to stop doing this. It's like, for the past 8 years, we knew that if this takes us 20 years to break through for our kids, this is the right decision. This is the right way to act as an adult. This is the way to act as a human. And if we don't get it back from our kids, that's not going to change our course or our direction.
Yeah. It's just a really slow burn. Like you just have to, the fire is kind of there, but it just takes it a long time to really get going and add up to something. And I always just kind of looked at it as you have to take the good and let go of the bad, and just keep doing that over and over. And it finally, the fire gets going, and it ends up being something that's really nice and really fun. And that honestly, all the stuff that you were looking for, so to speak, the pay dirt of that happening, it just really kind of surprises you when it happens, because I was expecting none of this 6 weeks ago.
I know.
So, we got paid for a lot of the hard work we've done over the last 7 years. And I know it's going to keep paying, but we got paid for sure.
Yeah, you kind of want to just sit and have a good cry, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a different situation for sure.
That's how I feel. But, and also, and I don't know if this is something that you guys can use too, is it just seems like when one relationship that you have with one of your children is kind of maybe less than or disappointing you, it seems like one of the others steps up a little bit.
Yeah, we've seen that over and over.
Yeah, and so Lil and I got a little sideways the other day, and I was so defeated, and I kept wanting to text her and call her and make it right, and I knew that the situation needed time. And because I was having to be a mom, and being a mom is hard sometimes, especially when the child is an adult.
Yeah.
And I knew that the situation just needed time. Everyone in the equation needed time. And I quickly noticed that Liza was texting nonstop over and over and over. And that's not Liza.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, but not often. Usually she's going to snap. And I just told God, thank you. Thank you for helping me get through the time it's going to take with Lily by letting me nurture my relationship with Liza in the meanwhile.
Well, and it goes back to what we've said on here since we started this, and it's a learning curve, and you never quit learning. And
No.
Sometimes it educates you both ways, good and bad. But
It takes a lot of grace.
Yeah, I've had to tell one of them a good bit, just keep moving forward. It'll get
Yeah.
better. And that's really what we've had to do
We have to
ourselves
do
through
that.
through the whole thing. And hasn't always been easy, but we're at probably a lot better spot than we ever thought we would be for sure.
Yeah.
So
And that's something we have to remember.
that's
I
something to
know.
be thankful for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So I've talked about the kids, and I guess today really what we wanted to talk about was kind of our path somewhat with Christ,
Yeah.
and how that looks as far as going to church, attending church, and finding a church. And
Yeah.
so, what's your thoughts around that today?
So this all kind of started. I had told you guys last week that I had reconnected with my best guy friend from high school. And I told you guys in the last episode, he is starting with our most recent podcast and working his way back. And his wife is starting at the number 1 first episode and going forward. And I guess, of course, they're going to meet in the middle. I forgot to tell you, babe, she told him the other day, she listened to a show and she came to him and said she just wanted to hug you. And so he said, it's from your country boy voice. And he says he has a city voice. And I said, no, he just sounds like he'd be a good hugger. And he is a good hugger. But anyways.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Anyways, he had listened to probably 3 or 4 episodes. And we had another phone date this week. He had asked me about my relationship with Christ. And so I shared with him. And we were talking later. And he was saying, I'm so glad that you're still so close to the Lord like you always were. That makes me feel so good. It makes me so sad when I reconnect with friends and they're no longer walking with Christ. And I said, that is a note to me that you have listened to like 4 or 5 episodes and you don't know the answer. And so that doesn't make me feel bad or shame, or I don't feel like I need to apologize, but it was a note to me that I don't think you should be able to listen to 3 or 4 episodes of our podcast and not know where I am with God.
Well, and so in our path as a blended family,
Yeah.
it's been a little bit of a struggle in our church life, just with the kids being different environments than what they were used to as we blended them. And for me, kind of going from a country church to a city church, and we've talked about that a lot on here before. But I think too, after COVID and not going to church for a while for that, and then we went back. Obviously, it was hard to get back going, but really something in us, I think, changed a little bit in that time frame too.
I do too. And I was really excited to sit to these mics because we always learn a few new things.
Yeah.
And we're missing a few pieces on this. And I don't know if we'll figure them out tonight, but it's going to be fun to unpack it with you.
Yeah.
Jay and I were raised the exact same way in a Southern Baptist church. Maybe not the same when it came to like youth group and church camps and things, but we were raised in the same type of organization in a Southern Baptist church. And so that helps us to really understand each other. I'm really thankful that we have that history that's so similar. When the kids' dad and I were going to church after we divorced, we were able to still kind of attend the same church with the children to where they never really missed a Sunday. He would take them one Sunday and then I would take them the next Sunday. And it just worked for us. And so then we started taking our whole family there, of course, and ultimately just trusted our pastor.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what kept us there. And he's just kind of so trustworthy and real and raw and authentic. And he was exactly who we wanted to lead us and lead our children. But I feel like for us, either we were being called out of there and we just stayed too long, which is something we tend to do.
Yeah.
Or the church itself, the non-denominational church evolved. The bigger, he was satelliting to our church. We weren't even seeing him in our building. And I think that was different. To where, going to a building and watching him on the screen versus sitting in our party barn with coffee and watching him on a screen, it felt so similar to me.
Yeah.
So then it became an issue of just getting our children in a building because we weren't, say we sat around a computer, we weren't having our children sit with us.
No.
And then the entity of the church, it started evolving into something a little bit different, more commercial and business, marketed more like a business, we felt like. I know, like the commercials and things during the service that really got to you, and stuff that gets to him gets to me.
Well, I mean, I came from country churches my whole life, and small churches, and you knew everybody, and it was really direct, and there wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance to it, if that's the right way to say that. It was just it was just your a lot of old country hymns and singing, and then the message, and so it was just a lot different. It was more a little bit like a show to me, and I really enjoyed the pastor, and I thought he was on point with a lot of stuff. There were just some of the pieces of it that were pretty tough for me, and the way stuff was handled, it was different, and so it was always a little bit of a struggle for me.
I feel like I felt like it was kind of a switch off. I feel like in our Southern Baptist church, it feels real homey and cozy and authentic until you get to the preaching. And then I feel like the preaching can be more, there's a special way that they speak, enunciate. It's more, there's kind of a pageantry to it. And that was always really uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Then in our church, that pageantry came on the first part.
Yeah.
And then John would get up there, and then I was like, oh, okay, now we're back to the real and raw.
It was flip-flop. Yeah.
It did. Do you think that?
I do, and it brings us to really what kind of started all this conversation about it was we went to a funeral back a few months ago, and it really started this conversation between us.
Yeah.
We went and going into a service, big crowd, and not really expecting anything as a whole. It's just, it was a funeral service, and it ended up being a hellfire and brimstone sermon that, that really honestly turned me off, and the way it was handled and the timing. I just thought it was really out of place. I mean, I'm there for anybody that needs the Lord at that time, and stepping up. I just didn't think it was the right way to get there.
It wasn't the right way to get there, honey. You can just come out and say it. And he had like, how many people? 200?
Probably.
200 people that maybe hadn't been in a church. Because look at our church rates of attendance. And we were on the second row. And so we had family of the person that passed in front of us, and just watching them be more miserable and more miserable as the funeral left the central idea of celebrating that person's life towards shame and condemnation and hell is in your future. And we just left there so frustrated. I mean, there was a point where Jay almost stood up, and we were on the second row.
Yeah.
So we were in front of 200 people, and he nearly stood up and told the preacher to stop, just shut up, shut up.
I was to the point I felt like he was verbally abusing the family in the front row, and just, I mean, it was so far out of hand. I mean, I didn't know what else to do.
It wasn't conviction. It wasn't like, God, the Holy Spirit really convicted us. It was man-made shame and condemnation that was so unfounded in the space that we were in. And it was not what our family would have wanted. No. It wasn't our family member that we lost. It was not something that they would have wanted. And so we talked about it. Oh gosh, everything he needed to say to that pastor, he said to me, and then I said my stuff. And what we were left with was, he had such an opportunity that he missed, and that those people that he finally got into those seats that may have normally not been in the walls of a church, would they ever go back to a church after that?
No.
And if our faith wasn't where it was, it would be a no for us.
Right.
In fact, it kind of shook our faith in the church itself, in the building, and in the pastor. It kind of shook that for us, that they would have been given such a giant opportunity to share Christ, and they really just dropped the ball.
My hope is there's one person that maybe didn't feel that way and got,
Nope.
got something good out of it. But it was extremely excruciating
excruciating is the perfect
to
word.
go through and to be there and to be part of, and it really made me question a lot of what we had heard in the past and really where we needed to be, and it's brought up conversation and probably a little bit of conflict between us trying to figure out exactly.
How come you think that?
Well, I think just like it was such a turnoff that, really made me not want to go. I would rather, watch
Do you mean points where I've felt like we needed to go back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
So there's definitely been moments of weakness, because essentially I feel like we're in a reset, and I don't think that we left the church and we're never going back, and we don't think people should be in a church. I think that Jay and I purposefully pressed pause, and I'm not even certain it was the church. I feel like it's us. I feel like God pulled us out of there, and it doesn't feel like we're supposed to go back yet, but we're willing and praying to hear from him, because for me it's uncomfortable to be out of the church because of our children. I know where my faith lies, and I know that I will be spending the rest of ever with our Lord, but I feel a responsibility to our children to have them in the church, because I know when I was young, it just was tough for me to get from Sunday to Sunday.
Right.
And if we missed, it was like going 2 weeks dealing with school and teachers and sports and friends. Without that refill of my cup, it was just always so tough. So I think I apologized to you about getting impatient of where we are. If I didn't, I am sorry, because I trust your leadership in this matter. I think that I can really, mark that up again to a moment of weakness, and just sometimes I feel like church was marking a box, and I feel like if I just checked the box, I didn't feel like I even had to work on my relationship with the Lord, because I'd been to church and that. So I feel like God really has us in a season of kind of unknown and waiting. And
well, I don't feel like it's dimmed at all, my love for Christ and my journey, and I've tried to self-analyze, is this a cop-out to not have to go somewhere on Sunday? Is that the easy button, or is it truly how I feel? And the more I thought about it, I mean, that's how I feel. It's not necessarily disagreement with the message. It's just disagreement with the way some of it's run, and I guess somewhat the way I feel like it's taken on, like what you see in a lot of society and what I would call fake news. It's just, I feel like sometimes a way to get you in. And I guess to me, the older I get and the more that I've walked through, especially over the last, 3 to 5 years, I feel like the more clearly I can see the BS in any situation. And we've tried churches, and I've walked in and sat down, and my BS meter goes up. And, I agree a lot with the message. I just don't always feel like that person is really up there doing it for the right reason. And I struggle with that. And not that I don't need every bit of church going that can be gotten because
Yeah.
I'm far from perfect. But I guess all that being said, that day at the funeral, what would you have wanted him to say?
That's a good question, huh? I like what you just said about, I don't want to leave that because going back to what you were saying is we were during, like you say, it kind of happened during the pandemic. And I think something that harmed us in the pandemic is we were watching online because we physically couldn't go to the building. And instead of the camera shots being the stage and what you see when you're sitting in the audience, when it's online, it's heavily produced. So you're seeing the piano up close, and then you're panning to a shot of the guitar, and then you're winding around the stage and you're zooming back to the lead singer, and then you're going back to a shot of the drums. Like, that's their job, and that's what they've gone to college to do. Like, they're brilliant at it. But for me, it just felt so inauthentic, and it felt like the opposite of why we would be here. And so we ultimately we couldn't even really worship along with it because it was such a distraction, because to worship along to something that's produced.
Yeah.
And then that kind of tipped a domino that kind of was like, just kept going. And it was like, well, if you feel that way about that, what do you feel about this? And then it was almost like blinders that had been on, not blinders to Christ, blinders to the organization of church. Those blinders fell off. And, Sunday mornings were so rough around our house because Jay takes the kids to Dairy Queen every Sunday morning. That's our tradition. And they would come in hot on 2 wheels, and then it would be my job to get the 5 kids ready in such a small amount of time. And then he and I would fight that he didn't give me enough time to get them ready. And then I would be yelling at the kids because they couldn't find their shoes, or their shoes were at Dad's. And nobody was having fun. And then we would be angry. Someone would be crying, usually me. And then we would walk into the church, and then I have my arms in the air. Like, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so when I say I feel like the Lord has pulled us to let us do this, what we're doing right now, reevaluate our relationship with the church and how can it reflect our relationship with God. When we did take a step out, I just wanted desperately for our home to feel like Jesus. Like, if we're not going to leave this home to go to a church where I feel the Lord, then the Lord has got to be the urgency of the Lord. Yeah. The urgency for me to act as Christ and you to act as Christ, and Christ to be in our home and our children feel safe here.
Yeah.
It just was absolutely amplified. And when we were in the church nonstop, that was not the case. So that's why I keep saying, I don't know if it's the church. I think it's us.
Well, and that's why I was saying, earlier, the self-reflection of wondering, like, is that those type of problems, trying to deal with all that on Sunday mornings, does that, make you want to pull away from it? But I still go back to that funeral, and one thing we didn't mention is that there was an older pastor that spoke first.
Oh,
that was friends with the family, and he was just phenomenal.
We were on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, and just, make you just feel like you were part of something, and, you truly could feel the Lord, and
it's beautiful.
And, it meant a lot to the family. And then the next guy comes up, and he just rips that to shreds.
Yeah.
Sets it on fire and just burns everything to the
and
ground.
then tells you that you're going to be set on fire.
Right. I mean, he, like there's no path to heaven when he gets done. And that's 2 totally different deals. And, that's up to us to figure that out.
However, one was 8 minutes and the other was like 50.
Yeah. Way out of hand. Yeah. So not to go back and beat a dead
I need you to
horse.
go back because I didn't answer your question, and I want wanted to.
Yeah, so what would you have wanted number 2 to do in his 50 minutes?
In his 50 minutes, love that Christ is love,
Yeah.
and that you are loved, and that you are enough, and that you aren't shit, and that you were made, you are the daughter or the son of the Most High, and that everything that you need to navigate this earth is supplied to you through your faith in Christ and in your relationship with the Lord as you surrender every part of your life, and the strength that He gives you in every single moment if you will just let Him. I just love Him so much, and I can't even imagine being here alone on this earth without a relationship with Him. I feel like it is the nicest thing that we could do for each other is to tell each other that there is a hope and that there is a love in the deepest, darkest, most desperate spaces, that He meets you there. You don't have to find a button-up shirt and get yourself to church to find Him. He meets you wherever you meet Him. And I don't know, I've just fallen in love with Him over and over and over this year. And we went down to the beach a couple of weeks ago, and I had the most intense dream with Him. And I just woke up thinking, we're going to be all right. But He just kept saying, I'll find you in your dreams. I can get to you wherever you are.
Yeah.
Do not doubt where I can get to you, and do not doubt where I can get to your children.
Right.
And it changed me. I was changed. And I don't even feel like I needed it to be changed, because I feel like He's been my homie since I was a little girl. And even that dream drawing me so close to Him, and Him telling me I can meet them in their dreams, just like I'm meeting you right now. I can meet them in their dreams. It didn't make me not want to get back to church or get them back to church, but it did help me to further evolve into the right person that needs to go back to that church. Yeah. Not to that church, to a church.
Yeah.
And I feel like something that you and I are a desire of ours is to be who our kids need us to be to see Christ. Like, we don't want, like we always say, if less of us is more of you, take everything. Like, take us out of the whole equation if that's how our children thrive in you. And I feel like that's something that we've always desired, is just don't let us be a distraction for them. And so I feel like that's what's happening right now, is we're just letting Him kind of wash us.
Right. Well, I think for me, something I've learned, and we've talked about it on here before, is the point of loving somebody no matter what's going on, and whether 100% disagree with what they're doing or how they're acting. That's something that you always point out. Well, if everybody else hates them, then I have to love them. Mm-hmm. And you take the sermon, the 50-minute sermon of there was zero love, and it's basically, if you're living the perfect life, you're going to hell. And that's just a struggle for me, because there just wasn't any love. And I know I'm not looking for an excuse for any way I've sinned, and I'm not looking to be excused from being out of church. It's just, I feel like that love has to be expressed irregardless of what's going on, irregardless of whether you're sitting in a church pew or watching on a computer, and not being beat down for it.
Sure.
And so, for me, I would have liked to have seen that guy, not only because it was a funeral, if it was his sermon, even if we were there on a Sunday morning, a Sunday night sermon, to preach more about love and more about forgiveness, and realizing that he's not perfect. Mm-hmm. Nobody in that crowd is perfect.
Sure.
I mean, there's no need to beat everybody to the ground.
Right.
So I just struggle with that, and I know that we'll find our path.
Yeah.
We always have, and a lot of times it ends up being a totally different path than what we thought. And I think, if we keep moving forward like we tell our kids, and it'll show up the right
Yeah.
thing. And I don't know the timing and don't know what to expect, but I know that it's coming.
Right. I know something that helped me, just the, not credibility, but eyes for it. How we say, like, we kind of used to judge people that were divorced because we weren't divorced. And I don't know if I had a heart for people that weren't in church because we had never even considered it.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have compassion for someone. It was kind of like a zero, if I'm honest, it was almost more like I don't really understand. I can't even understand taking your children out of church. And so I'm grateful for all of the experiences that we have and the evolving into someone that can see others clearly because we have walked through it in the same way.
And that's where my path differs a little bit from yours. Before we were married, I spent a good amount of time in church, but as an adult, have not always been in church. And so I think, there was a time there that, I not necessarily got away from the Lord, just wasn't, following all the, I don't know what the right word I'm looking for, but I wasn't doing everything correctly. Not that I was doing everything bad.
Yeah.
I just, as far as being a Christian, I didn't feel like I was doing everything. And so, got back into the church and got back into the Word a little bit, but I can see now where I struggled with the pieces of this, what we're talking about today, all the way back
Really?
to being an adult.
Yeah.
And where I've got into a church at times, and it's kind of looks like it takes the direction of being more of a money raising
Sure.
deal than it is about Christ. And
Yeah.
that's where I struggle. And I realize, churches have to have it to survive, but I can look back and see that now.
Really?
And so it makes me wonder and think about what is going to happen and what is our path moving forward. So,
It is. I think that's why I say that's why my blinders fell off recently, because I was in a church. I grew up in a church that had a lot of scandal and affairs, and just if there was any time to be like, wait a second, like this isn't right, it would have been when I was a kid, because I was by no means inside a perfect church. And so for it to take me to my 40s just to kind of be turned off by, this doesn't feel like God, this doesn't look like God, I don't know if God would be proud of this. And noticing that I feel Christ in other instances, and I don't feel it here. Heck, when Lily went to school, there was a little party at the Baptist Student Union, and then the next night there was a little sorority get together, and she was like, "Mom, I didn't like that. Like, they weren't very nice to us at the church thing. They didn't speak to us. They only spoke to each other because they've known each other. They didn't even try to speak to any of the new people." And she was like, and then the next night, and I was like, it felt more like church. And she was like, "Yes, ma'am." Like, and we kind of had a good laugh. And that's kids. Kids don't know how to,
No.
they're just kids. But I'm just saying, sometimes recently to me, I feel like you're drawing closer to Christ and that Christ is present in meetings that aren't inside the church.
Yeah.
And I feel like what is happening sometimes inside a church, I really would just love to find something that is authentic and that does care for the widows and the orphans and the homeless and the outreach of the community and being the hands and feet of Christ to those around us, and zero flash. But I know that the church doesn't owe us anything.
Absolutely not.
I don't need us to go sit in the seats and be entertained or okay, be Christ to me, like show me your Christ and increase my relationship. And so that's where I'm kind of a little bit putting pen to paper of, so what is my role? I want to serve within the church.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was really wanting us to find a little church closer to here, because we know how to do all that stuff. We know how to help people with their yard. We know how to, we have equipment. We can help people with their driveways. We know how to do the physical stuff for others. And I just felt like that's something that a country church would need us for.
I feel like too that it's a little bit, society has changed, and for me personally, I haven't necessarily changed with them. Like, I feel like that people have become so used to getting entertained that the churches are entertaining them to keep them there, and the entertainment to me
pushes us away.
I mean, it's just it's the opposite for me, because I'm just not that way, and that's the part that I don't understand, and I miss the community. I miss the people.
Yeah.
And, the thing about it is, the big church we were in, I mean, I don't ever remember a sermon that I didn't like.
Yeah.
That he
gosh.
preached.
He's so great.
And honestly, you hate to say it, but I mean, getting online is turning on for the sermon, and we kind of miss the rest of it. And, and I know that that's not how a church grows, and that's not necessarily how you get the word out, but at the same time, that's kind of what's worked for us. And so moving forward, what do you think our plan is? I mean, I like I said earlier, I feel like that it'll find us before we find it.
I think if we just surrender all of it to God, that he will make our path known.
Yep.
And that I feel like you and I are as in agreement as we could possibly be, and he's going to let one of us know, and that we're going to be faithful to that. But meanwhile, we're just going to make sure that our children, I feel like we kind of raised them when they were little, like if we can just get them to the church will tell them about God.
Yeah, it's kind of like sending a kid to school to learn how to act.
And I don't want to do homework and so I feel like that's where I've really appreciated this process, is because it did just absolutely put a stop on that, us relying on the church to minister to our children instead of us. Can see it now, It gave me a new perspective once we stopped and took a step back. And I don't really even remember feeling that way. No. So we plan on building our forever home near our farm. And so that puts us over there. And so finding something smaller that needs our hands and needs our resources and needs us to join their team for outreach and ministry. And they're looking for us and we're looking for them, but we don't know who they are yet. And so I hope that is what we're looking for. If not, I could see us hosting a Bible study in our home or on our deck when we build the house. And so I guess my answer is I don't know. Yeah. Do you know?
I don't. I just feel like that everything that's happened to us in the last 7-8 years, that it's all happened for a reason. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is happening for a reason, and that our answer will show up to us. And I do feel like we're actively looking for it, and I think that it will come to us. I'm a little bit concerned if we have failed our kids a little bit.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you say that.
That's
not because I was worried you didn't. It feels nice to have solidarity. Yeah. Keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, I mean, just, that I think that answer will be in the future too. I think they're good humans, and I think they'll be great adults. And I think they'll somewhat, they'll find their own path. And I think that's part of it versus where, we felt like we had a little bit pounded into us and, I feel like they're,
Some religious trauma.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think there's part of that. And as far as, what our future holds, I think it'll show itself. And I think we just have to continue to try to be better Christians and better people and, just continue to improve as we move forward.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, really today was really just to talk about kind of our path and how it's pretty uphill.
Be honest.
We feel like, today it's really uphill for us and where we're going. And
What do you mean uphill?
well, as far as finding a church, I
Yeah.
feel like we're struggling
Because
there
we
a
don't
little.
have an idea.
Right. We're struggling a little bit to try to find that. And, we see other people that have it that we're close to, but we wonder, is it us that we just don't fit there or really
Yeah.
what's going on? So I know
Yeah.
there's something out there. It's just something that we've struggled about. And it's something that we've talked about a lot over the
Yeah.
probably the last 6 months. Even though we've struggled before that, it's really been a topic for us personally. And like I said earlier, a little bit of conflict. So
Yeah.
we just wanted to talk openly about
There
it
was
tonight.
one day of conflict.
Yeah, that's all.
It was.
One dust up.
One dust up in the whole year, and that's just me. Sometimes I tend to know what we need, but I can't shake how I'm wired.
Yeah. I was laughing because, one dust up about this, but not just one dust up.
What do you mean?
Well, we've had plenty of dust up, so you just
Yeah.
had one dust up about this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I just mean sometimes I'll be frustrated in how I was raised. And I don't want us to raise our children that way. But then when we don't raise them that way, I'll get real angry.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of me that's just innate. It's just how I am. They say, when you become triggered, that's how you were raised, and you taking a step and waiting a beat and then walking through it, that's you.
Yeah.
That's the you that has grown and evolved. And so that day that we had a dust up, that was irrational and stuff from my raising, that I was in the church. We need to have the kids in the church, and and it was irrational, and I shouldn't have said those things to you, honey, but it just was a moment of a reverted.
well, I get it, and I do struggle somewhat with the hypocrisy of it. Of if somebody is thinking, and I thought about myself, or you taking the easy road by not going, and just like you think you go to church and it forgives you of a sin because you went to church,
Sure.
and so I struggle
That
with
checking the box.
Yeah, the checking the box, and am I being a hypocrite for not sitting here saying all this and not being in church and
Sure.
not being in the right spot? So I
Yeah.
do struggle with that. So
I feel like it just wasn't directed towards us.
yeah,
And maybe we were bothered by that because we weren't realizing we were just supposed to be joining in, directing it at people that hadn't come
Yeah.
to church. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, and then you think on the other side, what was it directed, and did it need to hit home? And you
Yes.
you start questioning that a little bit,
Yeah.
exactly where it falls,
Yeah.
So
Yep. We just ultimately just want something
yeah,
real
yeah,
that we can hold in our hands.
yeah, somewhere we fit.
Yeah.
So
So we're looking for that, or we're not.
yeah, not sure. Well, babe, what else you got?
I don't know. Thank you for doing this. Y'all, he popped in just to speak with me on these mics after a work lunch and before a work dinner.
Yep,
So thank you for doing that.
you're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I wanted to tell about, if anyone is still here, I wanted to tell about Cam's GoFundMe.
Okay.
So Cam had some, y'all know from, I don't think her first show, but Cam had some skin cancer on her face that took part of her nose a couple of years ago, and she has had 10 reconstructive surgeries over the past 2 years. And it's been a really challenging couple of years. we thought she was done, but the nose she's been left with has started to collapse again, and she can't clear it or get a deep breath. And it's just really bothersome to have something on your face that does not work, and it's up front and center to everybody. And so a surgeon out of Dallas actually contacted her, and just was like, I can do this, Cam. I don't know why they did your surgeries this way. There's no reason that they should have done that. This is what I specialize in. I can fix this. I can fix it. But he also promised that he could get insurance on her side. He's like, this is what I do. I convince the insurance. And so we got her hopes up. And so about a couple weeks later, called her, and he said, I can't. Your insurance will not budge. I cannot. But what I can do is I can do my services for free, and I can try to get the cadaver to donate a portion or all. But what it leaves is $20,000 to $25,000 in surgical costs. And so her grandpa is her ranching mate, Joe. We call him Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
His brother was the actual Marlboro Man.
Yeah. Not really her grandpa, but like her grandpa.
It's like her grandpa. Yeah. And they take care of Cam no matter what. But so he called me and he said, this is unacceptable, which really he found Cam crying, and none of us can find Cam crying. We don't know what to do with ourselves. And so he said, shouldn't be on her. Let's do it. Let's all band together and help. So we created a GoFundMe, and he's been helping out locally with the organizations around there, trying to donate funds. And we've been trying to get the word out about this surgery just to help Cam and Jack with this hopefully last surgery. Yep. So you can, if you're on GoFundMe, you're just going to search Cam Elliott. But in our show and on my stories, I'll keep releasing the link. Yep. So thank y'all. Thank you guys for donating even $1 or $5. No amount is too small. And I mean that when I say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
there's
too,
a lot of
I
us
was thinking about it today, and it's not about beauty or the look. It's really about her being able to breathe.
She's
and
good.
I know you put that on your story,
Yeah.
and she's good with it. It's just being able to breathe normal like any other person. So,
yeah. She's thankful that they caught it, and she's not vain. And I mean, first of all, she's this beautiful person.
Absolutely,
I know.
yeah.
And so it doesn't really matter. Take her nose. I don't care.
I mean, not that matters.
I know. I'm just meaning she's still so stunning. So she's fine. She's come to terms with it. And it's been a 2-year evolution of accepting it. So she's good with the aesthetics. It's just simply the airway.
Yep. Got to fix it.
Yeah.
Got to fix it. All right. What else you got?
I think that is it.
All right. As the song says, the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
I love you too.